Welcome back. I hope you all have been enjoying day one of best practices in First Nation education. This afternoon, we would like to welcome Sherry Blake, who is here with us to present on empowering students transition to high school. Sherry Blake is a teacher with KPDSB's Rapid Response Northern Schools team. She holds specialist qualifications in special education and guidance education. Prior to joining the RRNST, she taught at both the intermediate and secondary levels and has worked centrally as a regional teacher, diagnostician, and as a special education lead teacher. Sherry has a strong background in restorative practices, behavior management, crisis response, and is an assist trainer for applied suicide intervention skills. Welcome, Sherry.
Hi, Jess. Thanks so much for those kind words. And thank you to everyone who's joining us here today. I've enjoyed very much listening to the other presenters and speakers so far this morning, and it's very humbling to be included in that group. Bear with me and I will get my screen going and we will get underway. Hopefully that looks all right to everyone. So transitions and empowering students through these is something that is really important. As we see every year, one of the beautiful things about being a teacher for so long is that every year you get a fresh start, right? You see new faces come in, you see faces that you know already come back, a little bit older through a summer, but it's always such a new beginning and a new adventure always. But you also see the challenges, right, that are just so present for students, especially students that have to move away from home in order to explore the opportunity, including continuing education. So anyway, this is a topic definitely that is near and dear to my heart. There I am again. Really quickly though, or before I start, I do want to acknowledge that while land acknowledgements don't represent significant reparation, I wanted to share how privileged I feel and how lucky I am to be able to live and work in Kenora in the beautiful territory of Treaty 3. And I am trying every day to learn as much as I can about this area, then and now. And so what I want to do is share an excerpt with you from this book, Life is Not Easy, Laughter Means Survival. This book isn't for sale, but it is Googleable. It is a publication in partnership, in part, by 7 Generations Educational Institute. And you might recognize the artwork on the cover. It is by Christy Cameron. If you listened to our keynote this morning, David's book is illustrated by this Métis artist who created the cover here. The stories in this book is a compilation of stories from the Treaty 3 area that have been translated into a consistent dialect so that it can be used as a teaching tool. And I've read in this book that the elders who offered these stories offered them with the condition that the lessons about healing also be included as a way to help others that might be suffering. This story, which is just a couple of minutes, if you will bear with me, it is one shared by Elder Gladys Gishik, and it was recounted from a time before residential schools. If you happen to already have a copy of this book, this is the story shared starting on page 36. And the author writes that Gladys tells me that she grew up in a strong family structure. Her parents, aunties, uncles, grandparents, brothers, and sisters all lived in a handful of houses that were grouped together. Gladys says they all looked after one another's children. They were taught how to be safe and to learn the Anishinaabe ways. I always listened to my parents. This is what was done. Gladys draws me in with a long pause. leans over to me, lowers her voice, and then adds, usually with a wink. She sits back, a beaming smile on her face. She knows she has just drawn me into her story. I grew up on a trap line the first 7 years of my life. We lived in 2 cabins on 3 Mile Lake, all of us, 11 children plus parents and grandparents. The cabins were stocked with pots and pans, and each structure had its own wood stove. We stayed out there once the trap line opened, then lived in the community the rest of the time. We were always busy fishing for sturgeon, blueberry picking, ricing, or hunting deer and moose. The trappers were always busy. Every day they'd be checking their traps so the fox wouldn't eat the snared animals. The women stayed behind with the children. When the men were away, I always pretended to be a climber, like an animal that climbs a tree. The Anishinaabe people are taught to learn how to survive in the wilderness by learning from the animals. I chose to learn from the squirrel. My mother and grandmother always warned me to be careful and to stay out of the trees, but I kept climbing anyway. One day behind our cabin, beside the outhouse, I was climbing my favorite tree. I loved climbing it. I used my imagination and actually believed I was a squirrel. The tree was about 8 feet high with lots of branches for holding on to. I crawled out onto a limb so I could try to jump to the next tree. I leapt, but never made it across. As I sprung, my clothes got caught on a limb. I found myself dangling by the back of my pants. I was hanging upside down in such a way that I couldn't reach up. I couldn't reach behind to free myself. Even if I did free myself, I was going to drop quite a distance and land on my head. I was out of reach of anything to grab onto. I hung there feeling the blood rush to my head, unable to change my position. A normal child would be afraid of falling, but I was more worried about the repercussions of getting caught climbing after I was warned not to. Luckily, around the same time as my jump like a squirrel attempt failed, my Uncle Albert had finished using the outhouse. He came out to find me hanging there. As he helped me down, I begged him not to tell on me. I hadn't yet realized that later on, I would need to explain to my parents why my pants had a big rip in them. The moral here is, listen to your elders. The author opens the door, stomps snow off his boot, and then comes in to sit in his lounger. We discussed the Anishinaabe family unit before it was so drastically changed by outside forces. Almost every elder I have spoken with over the past 13 years working with First Nation and Inuit communities talks about growing up on the trap line, how important nature was to them, and how much fun they had together as young families. So let's first get to know who is out there. Matt, if you wouldn't mind throwing up poll number 1 to everyone, I would just like to hear if you are a student or if you are currently a caring adult. And then I will share with you while you're getting a chance to enter your input there, some of the things that I want to speak with you about student transitions is really to explore a little bit, get our brains thinking about the nature of the challenges and the opportunities facing our youth as they transition to secondary school. The challenges and opportunities are very similar for that transition to college and university as well, in particular when we're talking about a move being required. I want to relate that to the importance of students knowing themselves as a learner and some tools that I feel are really helpful in aiding students in this journey. I have, of course, some resources that I want to share with you, all related to transitions, and a really quick hopeful talk, hopefully towards the end, about goal setting and just an idea about portfolios. So with all of that in mind, and hopefully that's been enough time, Matt, if you have some results, do you mind throwing them up for us? There we go. 100% of us were all caring adults out there today. Thank you. I was reflecting before we started today that I didn't get a chance to sit on the student forum. That's something I regret. Okay, thanks Matt for that. So these 4 questions, and the Honorable Murray Sinclair himself, we want to continuously engage our students with these questions in multiple ways. This is a journey. Life is a journey. And we're going to start somewhere, continue maybe in the same place, maybe in different places. But I feel very strongly that we are in a time where we just need to engage at multiple levels with our students directly. We need to be talking about these questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What are these goals? And understand these about our students so that we can support them best. But not just engage with our students, we also need to ensure that we're engaging with caregivers and community as well, to ensure that we are all on the same page and providing that wraparound to support for students. Because that page needs to be in ensuring that whatever their goal is, that their learning reflects that. And so everything, the knowledge that they need, the experiences that they need, the opportunities that they need are helping them on that path towards meeting their goals in the time that they need it, that they're ready for it as well. And so these 4 questions, I think, are going to underline my presentation today and the resources I think that I'm going to share with you. Because there are bumps, right? And just deciding is hard, right? Will I leave home? That decision is hard. Where will I go? Like, let's face it, there are multiple opportunities out there in this world. And I mean, COVID has brought us so close together virtually. But the other reality is this is a really big world, and there are lots of places, gosh darn it, that we can go. But we also have to confront the reality that regardless of the opportunities that we're exploring, there are going to be challenges to confront. And really talking about these potential challenges ahead of time, before you're presented with them when you're living in another community, possibly exploring it completely. I'm hearing that you're not getting my screen very well.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was trying to find the right time to cut in. I didn't know if you still wanted to share your screen. Right now, we're watching you.
You're watching me, so let's try. Thank you for the reminder. This will help everyone much better if I remember to share my screen. Are you seeing the slides now?
There we go. Yeah.
Awesome. So sorry about that. Did that test and stopped sharing. So there are bumps, aren't there? There's one of my bumps. Maybe we'll it will be smooth from here on in. We'll see. Deciding is hard. And so the more that we talk about these and really explore what is on our students' mind is might be really, really enlightening to us. And so we're not going to know unless we ask. And so one of my sneaky goals today is just to share my desire for every single teacher to ensure that every student they have be exposed to the learning and information that they need individually to reach their goals. I've been able to teach, I've gotten to teach for a long time. And at this point in my career, I can honestly say that I'm so far beyond doing things for students, including making assumptions or anticipating anything about what they need without asking them. And I have this little mantra that I pop into my head when I catch myself rushing or potentially taking over something, because there certainly is this underlying desire sometimes to just protect and make things safe and do things for students. And so that mantra that I have now, before I rush ahead and potentially decide that, no, you're going to take this course, or you're going to take this level, or you're not going to write the OSSLT right now. Is this something, Sherry, is this something that you think, or is this something that you know? do I think this or do I know this? Because we don't know really until we ask. And so there are a number of ways that we can do this. Before I share with you one idea that I have, I wanted to talk about one of my billet sons. For the last 8 years, I have billeted students. For the most part, those have been hockey players, young men who have wanted to move to Kenora to play AAA hockey. So that's from the age of 15 to 18. Not exclusively, I have billeted other students as well, but largely it's been hockey players. And one of my first hockey players, who I remain really close with to this day, had an assignment, a writing assignment to do at school. And it was to compare and contrast something. And he decided to compare, contrast all of the things that changed for him when he moved from his home community to come and live with me in my home with my son, start a new school, start this new opportunity, playing midget hockey. And he did a beautiful job. And within that essay, he shared that his biggest fear living away from home was becoming indisposed. He was afraid of getting sick or something happening that he would be so vulnerable and wasn't going to be at home with his parents, where everyone wants to be when they're sick, right? You want to be at home with your own stuff. And it's amazing how the universe works sometimes, right? Because through the course of that year, Trey's worst fear came true. He developed a seizure disorder and suffered a grand mal seizure while waking up one morning on a school day. And it was a really involved seizure. It was really scary for us, but it absolutely brought to light for Trey this incredible vulnerability. And thank goodness he told me and that I remembered, because all I could think of at that time was, if I didn't know, I might have made more mistakes in trying to support him through that and trying to ensure him that his parents were coming. And so as he was coming out of his seizure, I made sure to get his parents on the phone on speaker, so it was their voice and not my voice. And I'm thinking of the things that I'm doing, and I'm thanking God, because when the other part to that was, even though it was his worst fear, it wasn't the worst thing that could have happened to him. He's fine. He's in excellent health now. He's none the worse for wear. He felt confident enough and trusting enough to stay with us through that course of the year and undergo the treatment that he needed to do and keep playing hockey. And we figured it out. But I will never forget reading that essay and thinking about how courageous he was, and knowing that all of the things that I was doing to make my billets feel comfortable, making sure that there was foods that they liked in the fridge, and asking them lots about their day, and showing an interest, and going to all of their hockey games, and checking in to see how they were feeling about things. I didn't ever know to ask, what are you most worried about? What's the hardest thing for you? So that we could problem solve through that ahead of time. And so I thank you for indulging me in that story. I just can't say enough. Ask frequently, ask often, ask privately, ask in a group, so that you know what the underlying themes are around the fears at that time. And then confront and teach and support based on their needs at that moment, right? Just an idea. So who am I? So many students come into KPDSB schools for the first time entering high school from afar, with, and by no fault of their own, with not only no paperwork ahead of them, but also very limited articulation of their school experiences, their skills, or their interests so far. And the students on their arrival get peppered with requests because there's all of these check boxes that we have to do to get you settled into school, right? We've got courses to choose and levels to choose, and we want to know what's hard, and do you have special education support, and what do you like, and are you thinking of this, and where would you like your locker, and do you need a lock? And the questions, right, just keep coming. And never mind all of the other changes that preceded getting to school that first day, right? Quite possibly a flight or a long drive, quite possibly an introduction to a new host family, quite possibly getting lost on the way to school. Who knows? Could be a whole bunch of firsts already that day. And, you know, never mind walking into a room full of strangers, there's so many. And so what I like to say first is that every student who can develop an understanding of their own unique learning profile, and to be able to articulate, right? What they like in school, what their interests are, what they're looking for so far, in addition to their goals, is important. And it's okay to be able to do that, right? And so this is the first of a few resources that I want to share about you. I hope you have this book already. If you don't, it is my #1 book recommendation right now, and has been for about a year. This has become the book that doesn't get shelved. It stays on the corner of my desk. If you own it and you haven't had a chance to read it, I do recommend chapter 7. This book is about universal design for learning. This book is about addressing the mental health needs of our students first. This is about weaving in the importance of the curriculum as well, and that we can do it all while meeting the needs of our students, ensuring that they have access to the learning that they need to meet their goals. And through chapter 7, there are 9 lessons, and I love them all and want to bring them to mind. I've linked, you'll have access to my slides at the end of the presentation as well, plus all of these links, but there's a great teacher's guide through the 9 lessons within Ensouling Our Schools. And ultimately, all about knowing about our strong interests and abilities, knowing about diversity, that all of those things are going to help us develop awareness of social relationships, who it might be easy to connect with in a new community. Maybe those are people who have similar interests. What about fostering a sense of community as well? And so within these 9 lessons, it's looking at SMART in the way of the languages of intelligence, but it's linking that to our feelings, our strengths, our abilities, and needs and values as well. And then, you know, it goes on to explore ourselves a little bit more deeply as a learner, with this building this strong sense of community wherever we happen to be, and kind of the steps that we need to take in order to do this. And then lessons 4 through 7 are really about diversity, but linking that now to our goals, and even exploring careers, and how a potential career might actually align with our interests and goal settings, or how we might choose to do something that is completely different. Really neat exploration there. And then towards the end, it's a different look at diversity, and very specifically to positive relationship building, but also perspective taking, developing empathy, and some understanding of specific learning weaknesses as well, including learning disabilities, and relaying that to some of the challenges that people with disability face on the everyday basis as well. The multiple intelligences surveys that are embedded within Instilling Our Schools have been adapted from the screens from Walter L. Mackenzie Jr. So those multiple intelligences surveys, forgive my fumbling tongue. And so there are digital options available, there are pencil paper options available, there are options for younger students and older students. And so really there's not a minute to waste. Instilling Our Schools does lots of work about teaching to the brain, and all wrapped around the universal design for learning that I so strongly believe needs to be the focus in every single classroom at any level, at any discipline for our students today. So I feel like I am talking fast, but we don't have a minute to waste. So that was a little bit about who am I now, where am I going? Because there are so many options. And the seed that I want to plant about where am I going is that there are lots of ways to simulate the problem-solving process of any of these challenges that students might indicate that is their worst fear. Jess was really nice to mention that I'm an assist trainer. So I provide training for applied suicide intervention skills or suicide first aid. And simulations is a really big part of the second day of training. What I like to tell people when we're in training is that thinking about what we want to say in a situation, especially if it's a really stressful situation, is hard. Finding our words can be hard. And when we're stressed, everything is just harder. We do simulations so that we can hear what our words sound like out loud in conversation. Suicide first aid is a conversation between one or more people. Problem solving with our students can often be a conversation. No one's really, there aren't too many people, I don't think, including me, who would say that I like role playing, but scripting and practicing our words helps, or simulating a situation helps. And if we can laugh about it later, maybe we can ease the way. So Matt, I'll ask you if you wouldn't mind to throw up poll number 2. The question that I have for you is, I wonder, what do you think is the most challenging part of moving to a new community? And this is in the context of a student having to leave their home community to attend school elsewhere, continue their education elsewhere. And so do you think that's around the theme of finding their way around? Do you think that the most challenging part is the social stuff, making new friends? Or do you think the most challenging part is more about homesickness and the feelings of being away and separated from home and family? What do you think? And while you're putting your input in, I will share with you a story about another billet son who moved from a much smaller community. And Kenora isn't big. We are hardly a big city, but we are much bigger than his home community. And so, he was able to articulate with me how overwhelming it was, to have to navigate drive-through, and we have a couple traffic circles here. But the biggest challenge he was finding was the social stuff. In his home community, there was only, so many people exactly his age. And his experience was that we just did everything together, that it didn't matter who was planning the bonfire or the gathering or whose birthday, that everyone just went. And if you chose not to go, it wasn't a big deal. That was really drama-free, that everyone was welcome and you do you. And then he comes here and he's finding that, no, there are lots of things going on, lots of gatherings, but it's invites only. And it's sometimes you're invited to things, but sometimes you're not. And there's never really any clear rules or boundaries about are you in, are you out, are you welcome, are you not welcome? And it was disconcerting, hard to figure out. And it was good to talk through that and to talk through his feelings around that. So hopefully that's enough time. Matt, if we have some results, I would love to see them. Oh, so most of you, I love this, think that the hardest part is that homesickness part, being separated from home and from family. Thank you for that. And I am hearing that I need to share my screen with you again. So I will see if I can figure out how to do that quickly. Here we go. Here we go. Thanks for the reminder. And hopefully you can see that. So a little poll like that is a really easy way to just explore with student what the themes are around what their biggest fear is. This is also a great Jamboard activity. Really, really quickly. And then once you see what the students have put in for results, then you can have a look for the underlying themes within them, right? Oh, and I backed us up for no good reason. This is a really quick copy of a Jamboard that we did in the past. And you can see, those challenges, that loneliness came up, getting lost came up, no family near. Learning to speak up, all the unfamiliar people, right? All of those resounding themes of, figuring out how to get around, that navigational stuff, the loneliness stuff, and the social stuff all came up. So then we say, okay, any one of these challenges might be a student's greatest fear, but we won't know unless we ask. And then we problem solve, right? Then we role play, then we talk about it, then we try some things, all with this solutions-based focus, right? We like to solve problems, and it's so great for relationship building when we solve problems together. It's amazing, right? And so the empowerment part comes with, yeah, let's acknowledge, let's meet that challenge where it is. You're right, that's going to be hard. How can we be ready for this challenge? What can we do together now so that you feel more ready for this challenge when you go? So just talking through the scenario, it's easy. Imagining in our heads what we say is a good exercise. In my opinion, it's much more effective to say it out loud, to try the words in the conversation. And so whether that is asking your billet parent where the extra toilet paper is stored, or could they please add tuna to the shopping list because that is what they would like to have for lunch. Practice, 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 and having the confidence and the advocacy skills in helping to find the words is so important and so beneficial. Just trying out the words and then practicing. Walking into a room full of strangers is another big one. And when you think of the number of times a student would do that on their very first day of school, in addition to all of the firsts, it could be as many as 4 different times, even 5 if you include a cafeteria, right? So walking into a room full of strangers where you don't know anyone and finding that empty seat is actually a big one. And so this scenario is an idea that my teammate, Sarah, she just is really, really hopeful that classrooms around the province are actually doing this simulation because it's really effective. To blow up those balloons if you don't have enough people to fill out the seats, and just leave 1 or 2 seats open and then just practice, take turns practicing, walking into that room, having the room go dead silent, taking a breath, finding that empty seat and going there and taking that empty seat. Because, when we talk to students on their first day of high school, when they're still starting to navigate the the new school, sometimes they completely skip lunch because they don't know where they can sit and eat, and so, yeah, that's one way to solve the problem. But how about we just figure out how to walk into that room, find a seat, sit down, and to breathe. Let's practice doing that too. Any situation, any preparation that we can do ahead of time, I really hope will just bolster that confidence, maybe bring back a nice memory of practicing and feeling like, that was kind of silly, but maybe that will help. So simulate and problem solve. A couple of other resources to share with you. This transition guide to NAN's education summer high school transition program is a gold mine of lessons. Module 5 in that is very specific to academic and graduation expectation and pathways, but this guide is also includes other challenges like navigating racism. I also believe, I haven't been able to find it, but I think that NAN has also produced a list of schools, and every school out there that your students might choose to go to should have a document like this. And this happens to be Q8 and Patricia District School Board's Guide to Secondary School, but every school should put out one just like it. And if let's see if this will automatically do a share for you. Matt, can you tell me if you can see the guide come up on my screen? Yep, thank you. And so our guide has all of that. Oh my goodness, my 8-minute warning, that's good. I think we're going to be great. Has all that academic planning, and then these big questions, right? Who am I? Where do I come from? Where am I going? And all of the planning within here as well. So every school, so I do recommend, that you find these guides. What does a day in the life of a student at this school look like? What does a day in the life, and shop, because my goodness, this is a world where we can absolutely shop for this, the skills that we want. And so as teachers, we can, I'm having trouble getting back to my slideshow. We can get all of these documents in hand for us and go through them with students, right? And see, what does the day in the life of a student look like? Oh, for crying out loud. I have totally lost track of my slideshow. There it is. Here it comes. Okay, let's try this again. We just have a few minutes, and that's perfect because I'm just about done yakking at you. And now we'll just make it big. Hopefully that looks okay. All right, why am I here? Goal setting. It's a different way of looking at SMART. We want to get to the why. Why, right? Why are you here? How will you know when you feel that you've had a super exciting first day, first week, first month? Set those mini goals, and then make sure that that once they get going, high school is going to zip along so fast. Set these mini goals and then go and crush them. Brainstorm with students as well, who the adults are that can support them in and out of school. Who are the people and what roles might they be in? Because from school board to school board, school district to school district, the names of the roles might vary a little bit, right? So mental health and addictions nurse, or a forward directions family navigator, or coach, or guidance counselor might have a slightly different name. And so again, that shopping through these transition guides from schools will help you navigate the various roles for students, and then encourage them and as caregivers get to know where they're going and who else might be, and reach out to them ahead of time. And for those students who really can't think of anyone, Leverage your own contacts for them. Try and reach out in advance for them, for that one student who really doesn't feel that they have that one person or two, caring adults that they can reach out to, and help make those connections for them as early as possible. Invest in those students, because they're just one caring adult away from being a huge success story. Having students record potential challenges and solutions in journal reflections, I think, can be emailed to their future selves. And then something to note, students in KPDSB schools, we use G Suite for education. And so a little bit of background in G Suite will be helpful to anyone that's coming out for us, but it's also a great organizational tool. And that, to me, is, in part thanks to Google's really powerful search engine, but having a little bit of familiarity, in particular with Google Drive, Gmail, and Classroom, is just helpful for students that might be joining KPDSB at any time. I've included some links to the most recent. Things will change next week, but the most recent as at today. And then just a reminder again that it's not fair. The level of independence students from the North are often stepping into at 14, 15, 16 years old. In a lot of ways, it's not reasonable, right? It's so much so soon, but it is the reality. And so we want to empower and problem solve with students while you have them in your home communities, and then connect them to the strongest people that possible on their transition out. And so there are lots of things too that they can do in terms of portfolio building, just to have, that last report card from grade 8, say, or the piece of writing that they're most proud of. And so it's a hopeful idea just to help support students in creating a little bit of a portfolio to help them articulate some of their interests and abilities ahead of time for that transition, and in preparation for that peppering of questions as they are settling into a new high school. So as we wrap up here, I have included resources for you. Those are available on my profile page for you. And I must have clicked on but the very last poll, Matt, was just a quick feedback for folks to see how they are feeling about transitions now, a little bit more ready, maybe not ready at all. And while we are doing that, I will like to share just a quick opportunity with you before I ask for questions. And darn it, I've lost my slideshow again. So let me see if I can press escape. Get to this one. Make sure someone could just tell me if you see this opportunity popping up. Can you see my screen again? I hope so. And this is for the Reach Ahead program through KPDSB. And this is available to any grade 8 student heading into grade 9. The advertisement says for students who are planning on going to a KPDSB school, but it isn't mandatory. Any student entering grade 9 can do this. And this Reach Ahead credit into Exploring Family Studies runs through the spring until the end of our school year here in the KPDSB. It's virtual, so students that are participating will have this opportunity on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings to interact, in addition to some of the Google things that I was speaking to you about earlier. Okay, Matt, did we get some quick poll results on how people are feeling? Thank you for that. Yeah. Awesome. I'm glad. In the event that you would like some more information about supporting students through transitions, please feel free to email me at any time. There's my email there. And our website for the RN Rapid Response Northern School Team is there. We've just recently gone live, and you can certainly search us up on Facebook, RRNST, and see the neat things that we are doing with our partners these days. Thank you so much for your attention today. Are there any questions, Jess?
I was just in the chat, there was one question, and it is, what are you most worried about or the hardest thing for you?
For me, for our students, I think for me, I worry the most about everything that we're asking them to do, which is so close to adulting. I really want for kids to be as kids for as long as they can, to be whimsical and free and exploring. And so my biggest worry is that they don't feel supported enough when they have to leave their community to come out. And I want it to be different. I want them to feel uberly, ultimately supported. Thanks for asking.
Thank you so much. This was a great presentation. You're very passionate about what you do. It really shows that you really care and you work hard. So thank you very much for joining us today. So I would like to also remind everyone that the code word for right now is growth. And I need to remind you to write down the code and enter it during break. And now we're going to be going into the trade show. We're going to play a quick video to show you how that works. And if you need any further assistance, please connect with the help desk under event information. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day.